flag.
Start with. Margaret, start with.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Trustee Brunel, the landing knowledge.
The Pacifica School District acknowledges that we gather on the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush people. As guests, we humbly extend our gratitude to the Ramaytush elders and community. We recognize that we benefit from living and working on their traditional homeland, and we affirm their sovereign rights as First People. As the original stewards of this land, the Ramaytush understand the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of maintaining harmony with nature. Likewise, Pacifica School District commits to teaching our school community how to be responsible stewards of this land.
Thank you. Barbara, would you take roll call?
Yes, trustee Burdall,
Here?
trustee Burkini. Here. Trustee Doggett.
Here.
Trustee Patel.
Here.
Trustee Villalobos.
Here.
Thank you. The district visually records the audio portion of the meeting. All recordings are kept in the superintendent's office for 30 days and are available during that time period for inspection by members of the public on district equipment without charge. In-person speakers wishing to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items, please complete a request card with your name, address, and then item number and submit it to the board president or superintendent. You will be called to address the board. You may speak for up to 3 minutes. Virtual speakers wishing to address the board on agenda or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name and the agenda item you wish to speak on in the Q&A area of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. You will be called to address the board. Your microphone will be unmuted and you may speak for up to 3 minutes. After you have spoken, your microphone will be muted. The board met in closed session regarding conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code 54956.9D2, 2 potential cases. The board voted 5-0 to settle 1 case. And we also met regarding conference with labor agency negotiator Heather Olson, Superintendent, Employee Organization, CSEA, California School Employees Association, Chapter 128. No action was taken. All right. Are there any questions regarding the minutes of June 15, 2022 regular board trustees meeting? No question. All right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 15, 2022 regular board of trustees meeting?
A motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Barbara, will you take the roll call vote?
Sure, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right, all items on the consent agenda will be approved with 1 motion, which is not debatable and which requires a unanimous vote for passage. If any member of the board, the superintendent, or public so requests, any item shall be removed from this section and placed in the regular order of business following the approval of the consent agenda. Are there any questions regarding the agenda and consent agenda?
I do have one proposal around the Cabrillo Elementary School principal. We had hoped that we would be far enough along to be able to bring someone's name to you. At this point, we're still waiting, so we're going to pull that off the agenda for tonight.
Okay. Anybody else?
I have a quick question. I'm actually curious about how, I believe we used paper tutoring this year as well. I'm curious what the feedback is. It's less about the dollar amount, more just...
Why don't we pull that off the agenda, and then we'll just, Will can talk to that just a little bit, and then we'll can take that vote separately.
Okay. All right. So we're going to pull off 2 items. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda and consent agenda, and we're pulling off the agenda
The Cabrillo
Elementary and off the consent agenda?
The contract for the paper tutoring.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve that with those 2 items?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Barbara, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
All right, so do we want to, we're going to go communications first, and then we'll get to the contract. All right, speakers wishing to address the board on agenda items or non-agenda items, please submit your first and last name and the agenda item you wish to speak on in the Q&A of the webinar. Please do not submit comments or questions in the Q&A area. You will be called to address the board. Your microphone will be unmuted, and you may speak for up to 3 minutes. After you have spoken, your microphone will be muted. So we are going to start with LSEA.
Hello,
Megan.
can you hear me?
Perfect.
Earlier this evening, CSEA President Nicole Sayers and I came to address the board before their closed session meeting. I will repeat my comment here for the community to hear. I'm here tonight representing LSEA's support of CSEA. The district runs on the work of our CSEA employees. They truly keep the entire place running. Need help getting students across the street? Crossing guard. Need help with student Chromebooks? Network technician. Need help keeping an SDC student safe? Paraprofessional. Need help having a safe building and learning environment? Maintenance and grounds crew. Need to ensure warm meals to students? Kitchen staff. This obviously is not an exhaustive list. Notice that each of these positions has a direct impact on our students. Each of our students in Pacifica interacts with multiple CSEA employees each day. As you meet tonight in closed session, please figure out a way to manage the funds to pay these employees what they deserve. Recruiting and retaining is not simply an LSEA issue, it is a system-wide issue. Board members, please get the district to come to the table with a respectful offer. Thank you.
Thanks, Megan. Let's see, CSEA.
Hello, my name is Nicole Sayers and I am the president of CSEA. Today I'd like to talk to you about negotiations. So far the district and CSEA have been working well together. We have written and agreed to several tentative agreements that will need to go to CSEA for approval and then be ratified by our members. We even came to an agreement on how we can print and distribute all of our new contracts for all of our members. So now we are at our last negotiation of the year, compensation. Compensation is always a tough one. It involves money that our unit believes we deserve, that we have earned, a monetary increase that helps our members put gasoline into their cars, allows them to shop for groceries, money that helps us all live whole lives. When we look at our neighboring districts, our classified employees' starting salaries are 20 to 30% below the median salaries of the other districts. At year 5, the gap does not get smaller. Instead, the gap gets bigger by 1 to 3%. The differential gap compared to the median salary of neighboring districts never gets smaller. That being said, teachers, before their recent compensation settlement, had started about 20% under the median of other districts, but by their 5th year, the gap was only 8.5%. Administrators actually start with little to no gap in salary in comparison to other districts. If my kids came to me and said, "Hey, Mom, I got a job that makes less than all the towns around us, and I'll always make less," I would tell them not to take that job. The district has asked me how we can build better relationships with one another. I'm happy to help with this process because I always feel that the stronger the relationship is with the district, the better it is for everyone. I believe we have a good relationship with the district in many ways, except for compensation. We've been telling the district for years that something was going to have to change with our classified salaries. But every year, all we hear is, we have no money. When it comes to compensation, all the CSEA members feel less than and unrespected. Moving into the 22-23 school year, we are starting with at least 15 to 20 classified vacancies. We need paraprofessionals, COVID assistants, behaviors, custodial staff, substitutes for all job families, crossing guard, van drivers, groundskeepers, child nutrition cooks, and an OT, to name a few. When we discussed this at negotiations, we were told, well, all districts are going to start this way. But that's not actually true. Because those districts around us actually do have employees. They have the employees that we used to have who could no longer make the low salary work within their lives. I'm not sure if you realize this, but you cannot run a district without classified employees. I speak to our members regularly to see how they are doing. They have open access to call me anytime. What they're saying is that they do not feel that there is much of a reason to stay. You must remember Gerald Keller and Vis Ayala, the two groundskeepers who did not retire, but instead resigned after 7 years of service to our district. Not only were they underpaid, but they also had to deal with constant micromanaging, always being told what to do, never being told they were appreciated, and never told they did a great job. Unfortunately, I am hearing this story more often these days. We are asking the district for a fair wage increase for 140 employees who struggle daily to make ends meet and who have continued to be 3% of your entire school budget with total compensation. Let's lessen the gap between us and every other neighboring district's median salary range. Let me say it one more time. We are asking for a fair wage increase for 140 employees who only make up 3% of the entire school budget. Thank you for your time.
All right, people wishing to address the board.
We have Michelle Gray.
Hi all, it's Michelle. Can you hear me?
We want you to be a little louder. Okay.
Is this a little better? Perfect. Thank you so much. Sorry I'm not there in person. Soccer ran late for my son. I just want to first start by doing a little congratulations to the Pacifica School volunteers. They ran a fantastic ThinkBridge summer camp, and they had switched over from Valley Mart because of the construction to IBL, and it was seamless. So very successful camp. We always think it goes by way too fast. We want it to be longer. So just a quick congratulations to Pacifica School volunteers for that, and also for you all to help coordinate and work with them to make sure that was successfully set up at IBL. The next topic also involves IBL for me. So as you all know, I have been involved for about the past year, but definitely much more intensely, probably the last 9 months, to look at how we can improve fields and tracks at our schools. So IBL, particular interest for me, my daughter does go there. I am actually the IBL PTO president for next year. And this is a school where all students have PE every single day. So over the last 6 months or so, I was able to broker a partnership with AYSO, so the largest soccer group in Pacifica, and they also use the field, to provide a donation of $25,000 to be able to upgrade the field. So that's phenomenal, right? We always talk about there's never enough money. So this community partner, who maybe in the past it hadn't been so easy to work with on both sides, but really putting the olive branch out there, looking to have a solid relationship going forward, wants to sponsor this upgrade. Have worked with Josie and George, have a wonderful vendor, which is a legit vendor who has a Pacifica branch, to come in and really help with this. It has taken a long time to make a little progress. I understand. I want things to move super fast. Things take time. However, over the last 9 to 12 months that I really have been viewing things, it really seems there's just always a focus on why things can't get done. And I need to understand how things can get done. Things are hard, right? It's hard to get stuff done, but saying now that there's so much work to do, it's hard for us to move forward and make progress because there's so much work, doesn't sit well with me, because you let the fields get in bad shape anyway. So now that it's such a monumentous task to move them up to a good shape, that shouldn't defeat moving forward. And baby steps, great, some progress, but not enough. So I really need to understand how PSD is going to be able to move forward, be able to harness this relationship with AYSO and upgrade these fields for IBL. I'm interested in your feedback. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else?
That was it.
That was it. All right. Correspondence.
I do not have
You don't have any? All right. Board and superintendent communications. We can start with Trustee Bradall.
Okay, not a lot since the last meeting. A lot of workforce housing meetings and emails back and forth with the committee. Did present the project to the Pacifica Democrats Club last Saturday, and with Andy Lee, who presented Jefferson Union High School District. So it was really nice to join that organization and to present to them, and it seemed to be very positive feedback for both projects. And that was the main thing. And then didn't go for very long, but was at the Walk for Life for Cancer at Terra Nova. That was also Saturday afternoon, and luckily they had much better weather than this, so they got the last good sunny day that day.
The only correspondence I have is I met with Superintendent Olson on July 1st.
I don't have anything. I did receive the email from Ms. Gray.
I've done a few community things. I attended the Unity event at Sunset Ridge at the end of June, which was a really nice event. A lot of people came out. I also attended a CSBA budget webinar, and just to get a better understanding of what monies are coming in from the state this next year. I've also been on a few workforce housing design, well, there was a design kickoff meeting and various other meetings. I have gotten several communications around the school fields, including Mrs. Gray, and then also some concerns about special ed and making sure that future hiring or ongoing hiring is great fills for some of those hard to fill places. And that's it for me today.
I met with Heather, of course, but it's been summer, so I've been doing mom stuff. So I don't have any updates.
Yesterday, I met, there was a meeting called by Mayor Mary Beer with the City of Pacifica, JUHSD, Coast Pride regarding the recent break-in at the child care and the hate crime or the swastika, as well as the stealing of the pride flag at Oceana High School. A little bit more work is, Sue Beckmeyer, Mary Beer, represented the city. A little bit more work is being done around a joint message coming out, as well as we'll be looking at security measures around the child care classroom. And tomorrow I'll be meeting with the two leaders of the City of Pacifica Child Care.
The district values the goals provided in our local control accountability plan, LCAP, and strategic plan. All of our district board agenda items are tied to these goals. One or more goals are listed in the description of each board agenda item. The details of for each of those district goals can be accessed on our district website at www.pacificasd.org. So we have one agenda item that we pulled from.
Good job, Kai.
So we'll start with that one and then we'll move into the next. So that was
under service contracts?
Yeah, so contract with the City of Pacifica, is it that one?
Yeah, and I think your specific question maybe was around, we had paper last
any like measurement of outcomes with that tutoring program?
Yeah, we did. First, there was informal feedback, and that was from teachers themselves, and then from some of the families themselves, especially the families that we targeted that needed that outside of school at home tutoring service. They were very, very happy with it. They were actually asking if it was going to continue. As far as vary from school to school. Some teachers were able to really implement it as part of it. There's a component in there that they can turn in their essays, and then have the essays be proofread, and then the tutor actually goes through with the student, making suggestions and helping them out to improve the essays. There was 419 essays submitted. There were a total of 727 sessions that occurred. And the learning activities from those sessions was 1,146. Those are just really general numbers, but it was from school site to school site, it was different, and actually sometimes from teacher to teacher. And I think part of the reason there is because we had implemented it kind of late and trying to get some build-up for it and some ability to launch it and have it available. We did do a number of communications out to families and to teachers and staff for that. But I'm really excited about this upcoming year because we've had 3 meetings with the paper, the person who is overseeing our district, and she has a number of really good ideas about launching it and getting it more available. Having more students use it. So we have this big plan. It's called the Back to School Plan launch. And we had monthly check-ins with her last year, but the check-ins were with myself and Christy Novak, and then we would communicate that out to principals, and the principals would communicate it out to teachers. This upcoming year, there's going to be direct communication from paper to the principals at the schools and the teachers through various communication ways. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to really increase the usage of it. But the big success from this past year is that many of the students that we identified that needed it, many of them, not all of them, but many of them were able to utilize it, and it was a benefit for them. Especially in the 7th and 8th grade.
So we only offered it in 7th and 8th grade last year.
Yeah.
This year is the year that we're adding 6th grade.
Yeah.
Thank you for that very transparent and detailed answer. I appreciate that. I'm also curious if this system has any measurement of outcomes within the program or what have you. I love understanding how you're going to increase usage, but then if we do get everybody using it, is it beneficial?
Yeah, we actually have some of those measurements already. Paper provides that for us, so they actually will even identify down to the student who's utilized it and then seen, as far as progress, if they've made any progress. Again, it was pretty scattered this past year, but I could provide that in the future. I can even have the people from paper come and provide it. They really send us the data and have a PowerPoint presentation that kind of shows this. We can also follow it ourselves on their dashboard, on their platform, so that we can see that. That's the other component of it that we didn't utilize we could utilize more. We can do better at is actually self-monitoring, like the teachers and the principals and the district staff could monitor more closely from the platform and be able to see progress of those students, see effectiveness of the tutoring.
Yeah, thanks. I was just interested on your perspective on the effectiveness of it.
Yeah.
Let's go. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve agenda item 8C, service and consulting contracts?
I'll make a motion.
Do we have a second?
No, second.
And Barbara, can you take the vote, please?
Yes, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Next, we have a COVID update with Dr. Olson.
Okay, we'll put the presentation up for us. Are you going to put it on that? Or going to?
It's gonna be on the screen, but it'll be on both.
Perfect, thank you, because Elizabeth can't see it on there.
Yeah.
So I know that the 20th of July doesn't seem early to you, but it is early in the COVID world, which means that I can share with you the big picture of COVID, but won't have nitty-gritty details. The pandemic recovery framework will be updated. That's the document that the county takes all of the guidance and puts it together, and they have not done their latest update. So the guidance that I'm giving you is based on what was released in May, which is the guidance on changes. So, Will, could you put the presentation on the back?
Yeah, I'm trying to do it right now.
Okay. So while he's doing that, is that we've had summer school, probably about 200 students total in the 2 different summer schools. Last week we had 1 positive case at the district office, but we've had about 2 cases per week, mostly students. So summer school has been slow, but it's a much smaller number of students. We all know, I think every single one of us has anecdotal cases of people that are getting COVID perhaps for a second time, and we know that realistically COVID is still out there.
I mean, it's not mirroring it for some reason.
Not mirroring, okay.
So, I mean, I can try to hold this one here and see if it
Can you share it
and see if I can mirror it here.
I'll talk a little bit while we're trying to get there. I put together 4 or 5 slides. Essentially, there is a new document out there that's called Public Health Guidance for K-12 Schools to support safe in-person learning for the 22-23 school year. I mean, it's just like this huge document, but if we look at big picture, the biggest change is that the state is no longer going to support the PCR testing or the surveillance testing. There's going to be a shift from PCR testing to rapid antigen testing. The over-the-counter tests are really very readily available. People can get it from their insurers, they can get it from the federal government. We provide them, we'll be providing them. So the over-the-counter tests are going to be more of what's going to happen, as well as the professional version of the Binax tests that we can do at school. The other piece is that the workplace is subject to Cal OSHA guidelines, where the students and what happens in school is subject to California Department of Public Health guidelines. Those are getting closer and closer together. They're still not an exact overlay, but I would expect by the time that school starts, they will be aligned. They're not now because they're 2 separate entities, but just know that. And then we will communicate to students, parents, and staff about the measures in place. It's not going to be much different than what was in place last year. Okay, if you wouldn't mind moving forward. And like I said, the San Mateo County's pandemic recovery framework will be updated this summer. So Elizabeth can't see it right here. So can I move you guys over here? Sure. And then we'll change this over here.
I'm going to see if I can share it back here.
How's that? A little better?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for your flexibility. Okay.
Oh, there he goes.
Sorry, I
Oh, there we go. All right, good move. Sit anywhere you want. Okay, next slide, please.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay, so we're on like slide 4.
That's like 4. No,
Keep going. Next slide.
I'm doing that one, he's,
Okay, next slide.
next one. There we go.
Okay, so none of these are going to be surprising. There are just a few nuances. So staying up to date on vaccinations. First of all, vaccinations are available for the youngest kids at this point. It's still strongly recommended that people get their vaccinations or that they keep up on their boosters. And yeah, I consider myself somebody who's paying attention to COVID in a very great way. Sometimes I had missed the youngest kids, and so just trying to remind each other that how important those vaccinations are. The other piece is during the time of COVID and time of concern around COVID, people have let up on their other vaccinations, their non-COVID vaccinations. So making sure that all vaccinations are current. Obviously, optimizing indoor air quality, using face masks. This is a very, very cost-effective, efficient way of protecting yourself. We talked about getting tested for COVID, and that's going to be the piece that you're going to see the biggest shift is from PCR testing to rapid antigen testing, not using surveillance testing. If you pay attention, the state is not going to fund big testing endeavors. They did it last year because it was an important way of keeping kids in school safe. But now they're finding that those PCR tests are they identify too many cases, and that it's really that the antigen tests are much more accurate in terms of making sure that kids that would test positive are not in school, and they're the most responsive. And it's recommended that after every big break, like a winter break or a summer break, that people would test themselves using over-the-counter tests, and we should have some tests to share with families prior to school starting. The one thing that I have noticed with people's increased comfortability with COVID is that I think we may have fallen off the hand washing, and I just spent a lot of time in airports, and people are not washing hands like they used to. So not only giving kids the opportunity and having lots of hand sanitizer, but both teaching and reinforcing the routines of hand washing like that. So we have to get back to that again. And then bottom line, managing individuals with symptoms. Not that much different than what it was in the past, that those kind of structures are going to be in place. Next slide, please. So in terms of the local vaccine clinics, there are a few days that some of the local clinics have off, so we highly recommend using, making an appointment on myturn.ca.gov. The students that are under 5 years old, it's recommended that they receive their vaccine through their pediatric care provider. And so while you can get them at a drugstore or a clinic, it's really highly recommended that that happen within the pediatrics setting. But staying current with the booster is very, very important for both adults and students. Next slide. What questions? So I know that that's not a full picture, but that's the picture as I have it right now. Linda?
Just one question. So you mentioned that we'll be getting some home tests from the county. Is there a cap on that? Do we know if they're going to help for the entire year? Where are we at with that?
So I think the first distribution came through the county, and I don't want to give away any of our secrets, but I think we have enough to start the school year with everyone having one. And then today I just signed an MOU with the California Department of Public Health around so that we could order regular shipments of those. So one would be the professional testing piece that we do here. So our Binax kits have 40 kits in them. There is a little bit of a difference. You know how we have the kits that have a chew that we distribute to families. We really shouldn't be using those inside our schools. they ask us to use the professional kits, and we have to apply them in using the professional standards that people are trained in. But I do think we will have enough kits so that if a student goes home sick, we should be able to give them to the families to say, please make sure that you get these tests back. It wouldn't be a weekly test that would go home with kids, but for every one of the big breaks, and then being able to have them if a student should go home.
So I guess my question about that is just, where is the financial burden? Is that going to come from the county, or is it coming from our district?
That we are not paying for that.
Okay.
So I believe that it's coming from the state.
Okay.
Thank you. I do appreciate that, because I remember when we first were looking at testing, how exorbitantly expensive that was. And so that does not need to come from our budget.
Okay, great. Thank you. That was my only question.
Good question. Needy?
Thank you for this update. I think, as it seems like the responsibility is going more on personal responsibility and family responsibility, I'm curious to understand how we'll communicate best practices and, how to be safe, and here's what you do when you go on vacation, and what have you. And just by way of example, to go into my workplace physically, I have to fill out a form every single day that says I've tested in the past 3 days and I'm negative, I have no symptoms. And it, one can just say yes across the board, but it kind of forces you to think and reflect on your health status. And I do think it's a very helpful way to just make sure everybody's safe. So just trying to think about how we can communicate that.
I think that's a segue into a little bit later. We'll be talking about support for communication and communication strategies. And I think while we'll spend a little bit of time when the pandemic recovery framework is out, is refining that and communicating that in terms of the district plan. But what we have found out is that you can, make a 20-page plan and put it on your website. There are a lot of people that do read it, and that's great, and it makes people feel great. But the bottom line is people need continual reminders around, like, okay, let's remember to wash our hands, or and so how to build that into our ongoing piece that comes, one, from the district, but also comes from the school site, comes from the teacher, so that it would be layered in that way. So that's kind of the plan in the future. Any other questions? I think in the next meeting, we should have a COVID update, because hopefully some of those lines will be colored in at that point. And we're still a week before school starts at that point.
This was just information.
Just information.
All right. Adoption of the 2022-2023 Local Control Accountability Plan, LCAP. Goal, LCAP 1, 2, 3, Operations and Governance. Mr. Lucy.
All right, so you're probably wondering, didn't we already approve this? Yeah, we did. So on June 15th, Pacifica School Board of Trustees approved the Local Control Accountability Plan. It was submitted then to the San Mateo County Office of Education for review. And they're mainly looking at compliance-related things. Based on their review, San Mateo County Office of Education suggested that we make changes to the LCAP to be in compliance with funding source purposes, so that when it is sent to the CDE, that it'll be approved. The existing goals, actions, and metrics were not changed at all. The funding sources for some of the actions were changed, as the following actions contributed to the increased and improved service of our foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. So in the memo, it lists the approximately 10 actions that were where the funding sources was changed either partially or completely, so that it reflected the impact that that particular action would have on foster youth, English learners, and low-income students. So this new LCAP really just reflects those changes that were made to the funding sources of those actions. So Again, it's this time, I'm asking for a recommendation for reapproval of this LCAP. Also, what was submitted yesterday, was linked yesterday, was the supplement to the annual update, which was presented in February and was an informational item, was not actually approved in February, needs to go hand in hand with this LCAP, since it qualifies as the annual update component of the LCAP. Any questions?
So no questions? All right, do I have a
One quick question, just to verify, so the funding sources change, but the funding amounts, like in total, it's still the same?
There's still,
Kind of
yeah,
shifting which fund it comes from?
Yes.
Got it. Sorry, thank you.
Do I have a motion to adopt the 2022-2023 Local Control and Accountability Plan?
I'll make a motion to adopt.
Do I have a second?
One second.
Barbara, will you take the vote, please?
I guess all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Coordinator of Special Education, Goal LCAP 1 Operations, Dr. Torres.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve the hiring of Betsy Belkin as Coordinator of Special Education for the 2022-2023 school year. A little bit of background on Betsy. Betsy Belkin was selected as the new Coordinator of Special Education for our school district from a pool of highly qualified candidates. Betsy Belkin has her Master of Arts in Special Education from Notre Dame de Namur University, Bachelor of Arts in Speech and Language Studies and certifications in Administrative Services, and as an Education Specialist. She has worked as an Academic Program Manager for Esther B. Clark School with the Children's Health Council, and also previously worked with Pacifica School District in the following roles of Resource Specialist Teacher, Special Day Class Teacher, Special Day Class Para-Educator. Betsy has engaged in recent professional development, including transformative social-emotional learning, equity-focused personalized learning, and trauma-informed behavior management. We are happy to welcome Betsy back to our Pacifica School District community.
Any questions?
No, I just remember Betsy from Ortega.
Yep. Yep. It wasn't actually that long ago.
Do I have a motion to approve the hiring of Betsy Belkin as Coordinator of Special Education for the 2022-2023 school year?
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
One second.
Barbara, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, we're skipping item D.
Interestingly, I was digging in the consent agenda, and we also had the hiring of the program manager for behavior and related services. I think we need to bring that back to you next time. We thought at that time that it was a placeholder. I don't think we can address it in the consent agenda, right?
Did we add her name? Did we have time to add her name?
We did not add her name.
Okay.
So I think we have a candidate, but we'll have to bring that back to you.
Yeah, she's accepted, and we offered it to her, but it wasn't in the agenda, I don't believe.
Right, oddly, it was in the consent agenda, so I think we will bring that back to you next time.
Okay, and we're skipping
that Overlook Elementary School principal.
All right. All right, so item E is CSBA Policy Development Workshop and Policy Manual Development Agreement, Goal Governance, and that's you, Dr. Olson.
Yep. So we reached out to us knowing that we had over 155 policies to make up, and recognizing that doing it one by one, we would not be able to do that efficiently. We reached out to CSBA, and they do have a process, and there are a lot of school districts in front of us in that process. They also have that idea, but essentially it would be a 4-day process that cabinet would work probably right in this room with a CSBA consultant to update the entirety of our manual. what we, we would do the work, then they do some processing. It takes them about 8 weeks to reformat and get everything in order. And then what we would do is bring it to you in a neat, organized way, and we would walk you through the big pictures of that. We would give you plenty of time to read the process, but that is going to be the most efficient way to update our manual in its entirety. It's also not a bad place to be. Prior to the pandemic, one of our district's strengths was having a current policy handbook, because Wendy established that in terms of just going through the process and using the manual maintenance updates. I think once this is done, we should have no problem continuing that process. Is that essentially every month we would bring to you one section, which is somewhere between 8 and 10 policies, and keep those updated. But it's getting underneath that rock, or getting out from underneath that rock of being so far behind. So it would cost about $9,000 to do that. What questions do you have?
No questions? All right. Well, then in that case, do I have a motion to approve the district entry into the CSBA Policy Development Workshop and Policy Manual Development Agreement?
A motion?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Barbara, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you, motion passes 5-0.
All right, Library Media Tech LMT job description and related CSEA Memorandum of Understanding. Dr. Torres.
Before we hand this over to Dr. Torres, I will say that this is a long time coming. I've been the superintendent now for 4 years, and this has been on my radar for 3 of those 4 years. Our LMTs played a really integral role in, they always have been. It's been the basis of our literacy programs at schools. And then as we segued into the pandemic, played a really increased role in terms of distribution of technology. We now check out Chromebooks using our system to keep track of that, and have been ongoing leaders. So we are really pleased to come to agreement on the LMT job description. For you, Dr. Torres.
All right. It is recommended that the Board of Trustees approve Pacifica School District to update the job description for the library media technician. The updating of this job description will include increasing daily hours from 4 hours to 5 hours a day, and increasing days worked from 180 to 183 days during the school year. A little bit of the background and rationale. This was a very collaborative process. The LMTs were a part of it. CSEA was a part of it. We were a part of it. The tech department was a part of it. So it was strong collaboration between the LMT team, CSEA, and us. It took place to update the LMT job description, work hours, and number of days to reflect the current role and level of responsibilities for the LMTs. As part of this collaboration, CSEA and PSD agreed on an MOU with the following agreements. Part of that agreement was the update of the job description, increasing the work days, increasing the hours, and also there was a situation with one employee that we also made an agreement as part of the MOU. The updated job description and copy of the MOU are attached for review and approval.
Have any questions regarding this? Or do I have a motion to approve the update of the Library Media Tech job description and related CSEA Memorandum of Understanding?
A motion to approve?
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Barbara, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, all in favor, please raise your hand. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Agreement for support of communications during the 2022-2023 school year, and this is Goal Operations, and Dr. Olson.
As you know, one of my primary goals is improving communications, not just the frequency and the length of them, but how they land. And we hear across the board from parents and staff around how important communication is. And so our recent experience with Singer Associates around workforce housing, as well as around helping us develop some of our COVID communications, we found to really value the expertise of communication professionals. And so we would like to enter into a contract of support that would be high-level strategic planning of communications, laying out a year-long plan of communications, and then support in terms of the development of refining the messages, as well as helping, just making sure that they are clear and concise and helpful to families, and so to families and staff. And so I would ask you to for your support in approving a contract with Singer Associates. It is on a time as charged basis. They expect initially for the first few months that it would probably be about $5,000 per month. And it really would be dependent on the amount of time that their employees are working on that project, but it would not typically be more than $5,000 per month. So, what questions do you have?
What pool of money is this being?
It would be paid for through the general fund. There's not a special fund for that.
And then I just have a question about, will they be looking at the, I don't remember the names, but in case of emergency, the robocalls that go out to the parents?
Oh, actually, that's actually a great question, because I wanted to use this as an opportunity. With in the consent agenda, you approved the agreement around Parent Square as replacing our school messenger. They would help in developing that. I don't know that they would necessarily read every one that goes out, but help around strategy of what's the content of those and how do we do that. I think that's the piece where, as we've talked about in terms of communications, it's not necessarily more communications, it's about, more targeted communication and using similar messages around different platforms. Like, for example, if the district says something, what is the school saying? How do all of those pieces fit together? So that was, thank you for that segue around Parent Square.
Any other questions? All right. Then do I have a motion to approve the district entering into an agreement with Singer Associates Incorporated for support of communications during the 2022-2023 school year?
I'll make the motion.
And do I have a second?
One second.
All right, Barbara, will you take the vote, please?
Yes, all in favor, please raise your hand. Thank you, motion passes 5-0.
All right, future agenda items.
Okay, so we do have one more board meeting before the start of the school year on August 10th, and when we published the agenda last Friday, the topic that we had not yet added, but I think would be timely, would be a presentation on security cameras. I think that is, we would give you our current thinking around that. We were certainly thinking about it prior to the second event at the child care. And I don't think there's any easy answer for any of that, but it does seem like a natural next step of a conversation that as a board we would want to entertain. So I would add that on to the August 10th board meeting.
I'd like to actually add one thing to the August 10th, sure. And that's school field review.
Okay.
We had one in January, but I'd like at that meeting if we could have Josie, Cece, and George, okay. all three together, so so we can make sure we're getting all the answers to questions that we have around that.
Very good. And if you have specific questions that you'd like answered, I would love to be able to develop the presentation.
Yeah, you and I we need to get on schedule anyway to do our monthly check-in.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Are we done? I always feel like when we go fast like this, it's like something missing. I know. In that case, I will adjourn us at 7:57.